Welcome, 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 welcome. What's going on, everybody? How are you doing? Another stock sermon Sunday that we're tuning in together. Happy Sunday to you. Whatever you did today, if you enjoyed time with family, friends, watched some football, napped, studied the markets, whatever you did, went outside, got some physical exercise. I appreciate it of you for being here. And we're going to have a good time. So whether you're new and you're rewatching this and or you're here live, we'd love to have you live simply because where do you get a free opportunity to ask questions, to put yourself in the chat, and to come with notes and learn live? I mean, you have your attention, being put here, right here where it needs to be. So thank you all so much for always supporting the channel. We are growing continuously and don't see anything stopping as of yet. So what we'll do today, kind of give you a rundown as people are kind of coming in slowly but surely, is that we'll go over the markets, obviously, for this week. But also what I'll do, if I see a setup and if you want to see me trade live, I do have my futures brokerage up, and I will maybe look at some gold trades, which I've been primarily trading on the futures market as gold has been really, really good up and down. So we may look at that as an opportunity for those of you that are wanting to see someone live trade and see how the markets are moving. So I think that would be really, really cool. So not every single Sunday, maybe, I still got to spend time with family and, relax and get ready for my week. I don't want to be on the charts late nights on a Sunday. So if a setup is there, if we take it, maybe I'll teach just slightly on the movement of the candlesticks and you can see in live action. And then you can decide, hey, I love that. I may want to join Leverage University, which is where we options trade, but also futures trade, but primarily options and long-term investing. So without further ado, we'll give it about another minute or so. Let people tune in, come in, give them time, and we'll get right down to it. Let's see, a lot going on. Every week is definitely a week to keep your head on a swivel. We're on a green streak right now as far as trading, and it's been awesome. But I never like to, every time I get on a really, really good green streak of, man, I see what's happening in the market, I pause, because the moment you get too convicted on one side is where the trade goes incorrect. And you want to always make sure that you're nimble in the markets, especially for trading, and making sure that you're on the right side of the trade. All right. So I want to give both scenarios a very bullish scenario, which people may have liked because Friday was starting to build a little strength. But I also want to prepare folks for the traps that may be set, because at any point in time, the market's still a little bit sensitive to any type of trade war news. We have some NVIDIA news that came out about Jensen saying that, now 0% of the business is now in China. We'll go over all that. We also have Tesla earnings, so a lot of hype around that. So, hey, very volatile week, in my opinion. And then we still have this government shutdown, right? That government shutdown, for those that don't know, is essentially the ability for, I'll just say how it affects the market. The Federal Reserve needs this data to be able to make executive decisions on whether we have another rate cut, how much the rate cut is, whether we pause, whatever it might be. And as this data gets delayed because of the government shutdown, then it's very difficult, in my opinion, for the Federal Reserve to make an executive decision. So is data going to come out this week? We're supposed to have CPI, PPI. Those were supposed to be data reports last week. So who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. All right. Let's see. Make sure that everybody is good and we're tuning in here. All right. Recommendation for high premium stock for weekly covered call. What's going on, Tabitha? I keep meaning to get back to you. On that. I need to look at, because as you know, I'm on more so the buying side. James is more so on the covered call selling side. So we can definitely talk about that. I can shoot you a message in Discord after this, if you don't mind, because there's so much volatility that doing a covered call, protecting up against that with your 100 shares. Like, for example, you may be looking at Oklo if you have 100 shares of that or something else. But that covered call option premium, it's so volatile that it could get knocked out. So that's why I've been staying away from more so the covered calls, is simply because how much the range is, right? Typically people do, and anyone in the comments that you want to comment and you hear something different, you're more than welcome to comment. But Tabitha, more specifically to you, because we know each other, if someone's doing more of the selling side. Like they're trying to collect a premium, right? You're essentially saying that, okay, this stock is not going to go above this level, or this stock is not going to go below this level. And because the ranges of the stocks are so wide now, right? Like the stocks are moving tremendously. Like SPY is moving $10 a day, $8 a day. That's not normal, right? So the stocks are moving very volatile. So it's very difficult sometimes, in my opinion, to do the selling side. And people do it, right? Which is why you're asking, Tabitha, because it's like collect a premium. I still own the shares, but because it's so volatile, that's why I haven't been getting back to you as, because I've been doing some studying on it, because I'm like, okay, if we do a covered call, this could be sold out in a minute because the volatility is so wild. Does that make sense, Tabitha? So I still hear your question. I want to get back to you. I'll touch with James and see if there's any opportunities, but I've been really telling folks in the community just to kind of sit still, chill for a second, wait these dips, maybe buying some things, and then we'll see where we kind of settle in, per se. Is that cool, Tabitha? Just know that I hear you. Just know that I hear you. Awesome. All right. Let's go into the markets, and hopefully everybody that comes on, you're more than welcome to ask questions in the chat, do all those things, and I'd love to see y'all hear more on live. All right, let's jump into it. You're like, okay, hopefully that's a good okay, Tabitha. She's like, he's not responding to me. Hope he heard my question. Yep, I heard it. All righty, let's jump in and go. Because the reasoning you're probably asking, Tabitha, which is what I know, is how can I have something less risky, right? Like how can I have something that just collects a premium? I own the shares. I'm cool with it, right? Like, but the volatility is so crazy. We don't know if Trump can tweet something and it goes off, to the rails, either direction, right? So it's tough either way. All righty, let's share screen. All right, cool. There we go. All righty. So this is what I'll be watching, and this is what I was sharing with you guys. And if it's not for everyone, that is cool. But I think, a lot of times when we're on Sunday market analyses, people, don't, especially if you're not in the community just yet, or if you don't desire to be, that's cool as well. But a lot of folks, when I'm doing levels, they've never seen, or they're not comfortable seeing the price action, or the PA as we call it, which is how the candlesticks move at certain areas. So you may look at this, and this is gold more specifically, and I'm going to jump into our normal, but it just kind of give you an idea. Some people may see this as uptrend, right? Green, bullish. But if you look on a bigger time frame, right, we have downward pressure, right? Do you see that downward pressure right there? So every pop right now is kind of getting shorted, and that's why you see it not going as strong as it should, right? So it's just making lower highs, and I kind of want to take this short opportunity here, just to start off the live on a little green note here. Let's see if we can take a little something really quick before I start, and as people come in, we'll see what goes on. So saw that break of structure at that 42.60. Right, it's still a little bit risky in my opinion, because I should have entered on this break of structure here at 42.70. So we'll see if I can get a little breakdown down into this structure down here, which is 42.30, but still this higher low situation. So we'll see. We'll see if this works out before I start the stream. And what I'm looking for here on this 15-minute is right there. So I got a higher time frame, and then I've got my entry time frame, which is the 2-minute. So I see a breakdown of this structure here. And last time we broke down underneath this yellow line, where did we come? Down to here, right? So that is kind of where I'm playing on, potentially seeing if it could do it. But kind of a little bit of a late entry in my opinion. I like to enter on this breakdown here when I start seeing that, because resistance is at the top. So we shall see if this continues. If not, y'all will see me start off with a little small loss to start off the stream. All right. But this could be a little bear flag, as I was looking for this to go higher. But could this be a little bit of a, trend higher. And then what I was looking for is a little bit of a breakdown here. All right. Like this. Was looking for a little bit of that. And if it holds up this higher low situation here, then we'll probably, pop up here and I'll have to stop out of the trade. All right. So a little bit of drama there. Started off. Let's see. Let's see really quick if this can pop down one more time. Give me one more flush. See if this can flip. All right. A lot of downward pressure there on that engulfing candle. I like that. I like the weak close. And then over here, I can kind of see how that is continuing. All right. So I'm looking for a target of this 42.44. So break of a new low. I'll take my little profit and go from there. And then we'll start. If it takes too long, I'm not going to sit here and let y'all, because my goal was not to trade on the first part of the of the live stream. All right. So all good here. All good. That'd be awesome if it could do something massive there. Anyone has any questions really quick before we get started? This also gives a little people time to come on in. We'll go from there. All right. Just need a break of a low, kind of holding here a little bit. Let's see if we can turn on our volume profile. Volume. There we go. So I got on my volume profile here. This just tells me where the heaviest amount of volume is, right around in here. So this high volume node right there at 4270, you heard me say breaking down of that 4270. And when you get in low volume areas, typically, at least for my trading style, that is when you kind of have a more of a flush, or you can kind of see where buyers and sellers are. So if you see these high volume nodes down here at 4230, 4240, that is where I have my support range marked for this stock to reach some buyers down there and some orders, right? So a little bit interesting here. Looking for this to potentially be a little bit of a bear flag. If it can break a new low, I think personally it can do it. All right, let me check the chat. How's everyone doing? If you're coming in, awesome. Gold and silver, epic short opportunity. Yep, agreed. Just about entry point. All right, so right now on futures, just scalping right now. I just need to see a little bit more confirmation of it. But yeah, missed my prime entry up here. All right, starting to get that little rollover here. If it can take out that low right there, and then I can see this 15-minute candle flip, that would be awesome. Come on, stream. Y'all help me out. Let's start off with this on a little green note. Little green note. Yeah, just holding this area. Might have to stop out of this. I wasn't trying to risk a lot. I like scalping, right? Some futures and also options traders or traders in general like having, as we call, wide stops, right? So they will let it go all the way back up here, right? Let it go all the way back up here and then roll it over. I personally like to have prime entries, maybe a 5-point stop. My entry was at 42.53, right? And it's already 7 points off. So my stop loss technically 42.63, which is where I would lose roughly $100. And it looks like it's going to hit it. Yeah, just entry was late. Entry was late. We'll get it back towards the end of the stream if it gives me a better entry opportunity, but seeing some selling still stepping in here. If this doesn't roll over very quickly, then I'm going to get stop out on this. All right, holding up that level right where I entered. Yeah. It's a strong 15-minute bounce there. It's got to flip quickly. Got to flip quickly. I like the 2-minute over here. I like that. Beautiful. Almost hit my stop. Y'all see that? Nice. Come on. Let's go. So I can help the folks out for the week. I like that. I like that that complete flip of that 15. It tried to go higher. Sellers still step back in. And then I like the 2 kind of coming in this bear flies. Gotta take it out. If y'all have any questions really quick while I'm doing this, as people are coming in, welcome. Welcome if you are coming in for the live stream for the week. We typically start roughly 10 minutes after the top of the hour at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And today I thought I would make it a little bit fun to do some, live futures trading, right? Just so people can get acclimated to what the markets look like when candles are moving, and how you also have the opportunity to trade, many vehicles as long as you have the skill set. So my primary is during the week trading options when I trade, but also having the ability to read candlesticks allows me to see the same setups, the same price action on different markets. And this is trading micro gold, or essentially the gold futures, right? So my target, ideally, if I drag this down, would be down into, if I entered at 53, I typically like a 20-point move personally. So it'd be down roughly into this 42.33. So, and it could do that if it flushes like right now. If it gives me that nice red candle here, you'll start seeing it kind of push on there like that. And then I want the 15-minute to take out a new low. You'll see another big 15-minute red candle as well. So if anyone ever, wondered what trading looks like in Leverage University, when I say, hey, join live trading, I'm teaching while I'm doing it. Here's your example. Here's how it looks. The calmness behind the trade, the explanation, moving the stop loss. What's my plan? It's not gambling. There's a plan behind it. There's a strategy, right? And preparing for what may happen. So continually monitoring the trade that this is doing as I want it to do, right? And once it breaks into profit, you'll see this turn green. And then I get ready to start moving my stop loss into profit, right? So right now my stop loss is up here. I want to begin trailing it once it starts breaking into profit. All right. And this trade should be right at I think it should start working out in the next 3 to 4 minutes, which will be right at our 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. So we'll get right into the weekly analysis. All right. Let me know if you like this. Let me know if you like this. It might not be every Sunday because I want to make sure people get the information, not sit here and watch me trade. I typically like to do this after I do the market analysis, but still holding up that level, as you can see, right? It may need one more 2-minute candle, and it may need to finish off this 15-minute candle here. So I got 3 more minutes left on this 15-minute candle. I like the way it's closing, kind of weak, right? Not very strong. So might need that 15-minute candle to close before it does it or tries to do it. Also, I've got my EMAs on and my moving averages. As you can see, when I'm day trading, I use the 9 EMA, which is this purple line. And then our VWAP is that yellow line. So these are 2 moving averages that I use when I'm also day trading. If it's above those moving averages, right, typically it's a little bit more bullish. If it's below, it's acting as a resistance or a pressure down on the stock. So you can see, this yellow and purple line, how it got above it here, but now it's fallen back below here, right, with that big candle right there. So there is downward pressure in the short term because it could not hold above those 2 moving averages, right? So kind of using it here on this 2 minute and kind of see how it's riding underneath it, right? See that purple line riding underneath it, right? As long as it is continuously holding underneath that purple line, right, then the stock is moving in that direction as it should. The moment I see a big break above, then the trade is invalid at that point. So that means if I see something like this, right, start to move, then it would most likely hit my stop loss right there and the trade would be invalid, right? So you kind of see what it's doing now, starting to act up. So I'll move my stop loss here to the top of that candle. It breaks above the top of that wick candle right there, then yeah, it is invalid. Okay, one more minute. One more minute, see if we can flip. $59 seconds. Man, it's been an awesome trade. Enter on that wick right there. Enter on the next candle. Still holding up this trend. $17 seconds till this 15-minute candle closes over here. It looks like it's closing pretty strong. Very indecisive. Come on. It's got to do it now. It's got to flip now. It's got to flip red now. Got to flip red now. Got to go aggressively. Got to go aggressively. Gold, you acting up in front of my people. You're acting up in front of my people. So what you'll see here is terminology from traders is what we call PA, which is price action. So what I tell many of you when you're coming on here learning and I'm charting out and you're like, I don't see any candlesticks moving, right? When I say watch a level, right, I will watch an area. So this area right here is showing me based on price action that there are buyers sitting right here, right? Do you see that wick? Came down, popped back up. Came down, popped back up, right? So it's showing me based on price action, which is I'm a price action reading trader, right? I watch an area that I mark off. And once I see the price action is holding, you see how that was a former red candle, got bought back up. I don't necessarily like that, right? It is not going as aggressively as I would want. So sometimes I'll just get out of the trade because I'm like, I don't like the PA in here. I don't like the price action in that area, in that zone, because it could quickly turn into a bull flag and squeeze all the way back up to the highs like this, right? Which is an idea that I was looking at, right? So if it doesn't go now, then this is a big bull flag and a trap. But there's still downward pressure, as you can see, but it's got to go now. So just want to kind of showcase that in live trading here, that it's not just about drawing lines, which is why I tell people that it's great to get in a community. It's great to, just get on the chart. You don't have to trade anything and watch the candles move, because you will not understand what we're talking about if you don't understand or never watch the candles move, right? Because you could enter calls, for example, if a trader or a person that you watch on YouTube just says, imagine this right here, okay? Look at the number to the side. Imagine if they say jump in buys or calls, upside, jump in buys at 42.60. And you're like, the person said, jump in buys at 42.60. I'm in. Right. And you jump in, but the price action is getting weak around that area. Right. And now you're red thinking that it's going to go up, but the price action is failing that area. All right. So you don't just jump in. I think that's what some people do when they, hear levels or they get on a YouTube and they just mark their levels. And then they wake up in the morning and they're like, calls. Brian said calls above this level. It's like, well, it's more complicated than that. You have to read the price action because that level could fail. Right. So don't want to overcomplicate it for beginners, but if you really want to understand trading, it is imperative to have chart time, right? Have chart time, right? And manage your trade accordingly as it's going. So this right here is what I'm seeing, starting to form out a little bit of bearish pressure. That could be a little bit of a bearish consolidation. So I'll draw that triangle right there. And if I start seeing it break out of this, then I know the trade is working in my favor. Also like the 15-minute candle over here, trying to get a little bit weaker. All right. And what I'll do in my live trading in Leverage University during the week is, I think it helps a lot of my, community members, is I'll draw it out what it's supposed to look like. All right. So as something is playing out, right, this is what the next move should look like. All right. Big red candle. Excuse me. All right. That is what the next move, that's what's in my mind. All right. That's what the next move should look like. A red candle down into that area. All right. And they'll start seeing it play out, and it'll be ingrained in their mind like, oh, how did he know that? It's the price action, right? Based on structure and price action. Right. It's showing me right here that it's getting a little bit weak consolidation in here, and it should flush down the lows. If it doesn't, breaks out of this consolidation to the upside, then cool. It'll stop me out. Bring that a little bit more because I'm liking it less. Liking it less and less. Yep. Looks like this will stop me out. All right, guys, let's jump into it. That whole candle just flipped on the left side of the screen. Whole candle just flipped on the left side of the screen. So definitely buyers sitting in this area unless they just fail. Unless they fail that 42.60. All right. I was trying to let you see it happen one way or the other. I'm okay taking a little loss on this, but that's what I was trying to see, is just for the beginners or anybody that was interested in seeing, like, how does this look? All right. Same thing in options, right? If this was an options trade on NVIDIA, right, I would, let probably the trade play out a little bit more, but futures are a little bit more volatile, right? That I want to keep a tighter stop. I do not want this to go above this area. But on NVIDIA or options trades, I would probably let this play out a little bit longer, but this is intentional to be a scalp, right? A scalp trade. That means a short trade that works in my favor, and I'm just looking for roughly about a 10 to 15 point move. All right, so let me check the chat. Y'all are welcome to give me a 1 in the chat if you enjoyed seeing that. Really quick, if you enjoyed seeing that, one way or the other. Give me a 1 in the chat. 1 in the chat. I think people like seeing people live trade and their thought process and stuff. At least I do. It's also working in my favor now, which is crazy. This is nasty work, as I like to say in the community. When something just sits here, that means it's consolidating for a big move, one way or the other. And right now, there's definitely some downward pressure for sure. Definitely some downward pressure. it has been really close to my stop loss every time and has not stopped me out yet. Now I can move the stop loss a little bit tighter there. That's looking a lot better on this 15-minute. Move it closer into that 42.60. I do not want that 15-minute candle to go above that and flip that candle. So I'm looking over to my left here. Top of that 15-minute candle. I'll probably move it to the top of this 2-minute candle there. This should initiate a flush. If it doesn't, then they're messing around. For any of my Leverage University members, like, y'all know what I'm looking at. Little weak bearish consolidation and trying to just get a quick little big red candle flush down. Yep. Yep, stop me out. All right, so you can see there, cool. Took a little loss on it, and it wanted to consolidate and flip. Now, Brian, would you flip upwards? I'm not going to do it right now because that's not in my plan. I didn't game plan that, but I can definitely tell that this area has buyers. So what I'll do is I'll flip that area a little bit and turn it green at this point because this area is really, y'all saw the PA or price action. Every time it went down, just could not continue. So it is really holding up that area. So that tells me that that area is still buyer central right now, right? So that could definitely flip. And now we've got 42.60 as an area of buying. All right, let's jump into it, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed that, even though on my behalf. Cool. All righty. Let's jump into our economic calendar. All right, so for economic calendar, got a couple of things that are going on this week that we don't know if it's actually going to manifest into reality because the government shut down. All right. So that essentially means that each and every day I've got to help my community out. And also if you are researching on your own, because I love the idea of people, right, really learning this skill set and doing it on their own, right, is we've got to check it every morning. So are you releasing data or not? Is the government shutdown still on? Okay, cool. There might not be PMI data this week. There might not be, we were supposed to have CPI data, I think last week, right? There might not be some of these data reports, which is what we're used to. We're used to those kind of coming in, waiting till data reports, stuff like that. So they're still on the calendar, but we don't really have an assurance of if they're going to report or not, right? So we've really got to keep our head on a swivel, lower our position size for our trades, and really get an understanding of the direction of the market, right? So a couple of things that are also in play. All right, so let's go get off of that because it always acts up. And I'll go back to the futures in a minute to check on that trade to show you all that, hey, you know, it switched directions. It went in the way that you wanted, all right? So the next thing is we have earnings, okay? This is a big week. I've talked about it. I told my community to also study this weekend. So if you did, give me a 2 in the chat. If you've been hanging out on the YouTubes and you remember last week I said it's earnings season. It is time to buckle down. It is time to, you know, figure out how you can capitalize on this, you know, final earnings season of 2025. Okay. So the big earnings that are up this week are the Netflix. Okay. I personally don't like day trading Netflix. It's very spready. That essentially means the bid and the ask spread for options are wide, which makes it a little bit more difficult. So I personally do not like trading Netflix unless it gives a almost A+ ideal setup. Contracts are also very pricey, so it can be a little bit tricky, but it makes big moves. So Netflix, I'm personally staying away from. Tesla, right? That is an opportunity, and a lot of folks are going to try to guess which way Tesla is going to move. As we know, Tesla has not performed well on earnings, but even so, it can pop higher, right? So personally, I'll just tell you right now off the rip that if you're trying to trade Tesla, TSLA, okay, or you're trying to trade the leverage version of Tesla, if you don't know what that is, it's the more condensed version, right, of Tesla. I'll just keep it at that. But that's TSLL, Okay. The long version of Tesla, right? So if you're trying to trade Tesla on earnings, some people are going to be putting in lottos. That means they're going to be putting in call options like, man, Tesla's going to 500. It could. It could also drop back to 380, right? So please be careful if you are gambling or putting a specific contract option in before Tesla earnings, okay? The ideal or gold standard is to wait till after the earnings reports because most people aren't familiar with what we call IV crush. I is in or what is it? Isaac. I is in Isaac. V is in Victor. IV crush, implied volatility crush. That means the contracts on options are going to be elevated or more expensive going into earnings. And once you wake up in the morning on Thursday and you're like, man, I'm about to be up, those contracts get crushed because of implied volatility. So a lot of newbies that are trading options, they're like, man, I'm going to make so much money. And you might, but also the contract could get absolutely crushed and go to zero, right? So the better way to do it is trade after the earnings, right? Because we know that there's going to be a gap either way, right? So you can have a better trade, in my opinion, safely when there's a big gap up on Tesla. It's like, oh, I could take some puts down on Tesla really quick, make my money. Or there's a big gap down and Tesla drops further lower, and then you can grab up those call contracts a little bit better. Make sense? So Tesla always is going to be a big winner for somebody, or they lose their head on Tesla. Okay. Happens every time. All right. IBM, another good one. GE, I forgot about, also another good one. Intel is going to be a main one this week as well because of all the collaborations, all the money injection from the government, the White House, as well as NVIDIA recently with Intel. Excuse me, I think it was AMD or NVIDIA with Intel. So I think that one's going to be a big one on people's watch, with Intel sitting right around that $30 mark. It was at 19, went all the way to $35, $37. And see if Intel can drop again and pick up more, or do people need to start positioning themselves in their Intel shares because it could go to 50 from here, right? So Intel is going to be one that's going to be highly on everyone's radar. So if you're interested in these companies, please go ahead and look at your position. If you have shares, for a lot of investors, they may want to pick up some more shares just in case it pops on earnings. As far as trading, ideal trade after the earnings. All right. So I'll update my community inside of Leverage. If you want to be a part of that, the link's down below. It should give you a small little discount off of it if you want to know exactly what we're going to be doing. But I'll try to do as my best to give you a midweek update on Tesla earnings going into Wednesday close. All right. Maybe I'll do a Tesla video on Tuesday. All righty. There's the earnings. Let's get off of there. And let's look at some things that are happening in the streets. Okay, so we got Trump. Let's just type in Trump in Twitter. And there were some things that are going on. So we know that, where is, whoops. It wasn't that. Let's go to right here. Trump says President Xi is open to a trade deal, right? That the tariffs, the rollback on tariff goods cannot be grown, mined, or naturally produced domestically, according to Wall Street government. Open the overnight market, right? So that is a bullish sign when anytime you have a rollback on the intensity of the tariffs, right? However, as we know, what's been happening every time he has a rollback on the tariffs, right? The market's been going higher, and we'll see on the charts that there's specific levels this week. If we get back above, we can make potentially a new all-time high, right? However, if there's still some stickiness around those levels, we could see a green Monday. We could maybe see a green Tuesday, but we're still in uncertain territory because what has happened every time we've had a rollback or some type of good news, he comes back and says something crazy like, I don't like this. Right? Or something else happens. Tesla earnings is bad or something like that. And as people have been calling it, the taco trade, we pop higher, it says something bad, then drop lower. Right? So please be careful trading this upside. The risk to reward might be good for scalps to the upside for calls If we see any gap fills, I'll talk about NVIDIA. That's an opportunity. But as we go higher, we've got to be very careful. If the move's already happened, right? I personally am probably going to sit back if we're back at all-time highs right away. Okay. Does that make sense for everybody? Maybe put a 3 in the chat if that makes sense to you. All right. So I'll be taking it nice and slow on Mondays per usual, building up that liquidity, building up that cash flow for the week. That essentially takes cash flow trades, right? Get some trades underneath our belt, get some green going. And then we can kind of relax towards the latter half of the week, maybe do some more risky trades, potentially for trading Tesla, going a little bit heavier on Tesla earnings on Thursday, TSLA, trading that as well, and then whatever else is on the docket. Okay. I'll talk about crypto as well, because crypto did take a pullback and people are wondering, man, is crypto, Trump rolling back this news, is crypto also going to pop, right? Which is also a valid reason, because Bitcoin is sitting right above 100,000, or is Bitcoin going to fall below 100,000? All right, cool. So that is another news piece there. Let's go into Jensen. Okay, Jensen Huang, let's see what he's got to say. The NVIDIA CEO. And recently there was some news on NVIDIA that happened on Friday that is a little bit shaky, okay? Which is why I'm very much of an advocate of fundamental analysis. That means when you're trading during a Trump market, you've got to have Twitter up. You've got to have True Social up. You've got to have the news up just a little bit, because the moment you get in your trade, if you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, you think a setup is good, and it's not just on the charts, right? They can reject that area, bring it back down, so on and so forth. So this NVIDIA news, NVIDIA are 100% out of China. We went from 95% market share to 0%. I can't imagine any policymaker thinking that's a good idea. Chinese AI labs like DeepSeek now have to use Chinese chips for both inference and training. So this is, if your market share out of a majority of your company, now NVIDIA, obviously the market cap is stupid, right? As we know. However, when you have a market cap that's heavy in China and you pull all that market cap, people think that's a good idea, or it's a great thing that we have NVIDIA news and Jensen speaking, but that's not necessarily the best of news, right? So it could be a flip. It could be a trap that it's bad news and then it pops higher with good news. Who knows, right? But we know that NVIDIA's earnings coming up in the next month is going to be powerful, because if you remember the last NVIDIA earnings, we did not have a piece of their data, and I forgot what it was. So y'all can put it down below in the comments if you know, but there was a piece of NVIDIA that was not reported on their earnings that should have. This, like, man, if that was reported, this would have been astronomical of an earnings beat. So that's what I'm looking for NVIDIA, that I do think it's going to 200 plus by the end of the year. It's just, where is it going from? Do we get 170 again on another drop? Do we get 168 again on another drop? Or is it coming from here and going higher? We've got to see how this week pans out, okay, in the month. All right. So those are the news articles, the updates that are happening for the week. And let's jump into the charts. If everyone's good with that, let's jump into the charts. Let me check the chat. What's going on? What's going on, Medlord? How are you? How are you? How are you? Cool. All right, jumping into the charts here, and let's look at SPY, and also let's check on that. Wow, look at the trade. So our thesis was right, folks. Do you see what happened out of there? Our thesis was right. We just were not patient enough. That was a beautiful breakdown trade there, and I would have been up. So I'm never mad of taking a little bit of a paper cut. That's fine. I can always make it back. But as long as my thesis and my read on the market was correct, right? So hopefully everyone saw that play out. That could not break, or that was putting pressure on that area. That is now our resistance. So I'll mark that as a strong resistance. And that is sitting right at 42.60 roughly, right? 42.60, okay? So trade worked out. It will now turn that into a resistance level and probably fall lower back into 42.30, okay? Right where our target was, back down in this area, all right? So you will see, and let's see if it plays out. I will draw that and see if it does it. All right, let's jump into the charts. jump into the charts. Okay, erasing everything here, getting all moving averages off, clearing up, and turning it on a weekly chart. Okay. So whenever I start a week, if you like the way I analyze the markets in general on our Sundays, I want you to take note of how I work backwards to get my sentiment for the week. Okay. I work backwards from a weekly chart typically. If we're at the end of the month, I'll look at the monthly chart and see how that monthly is finishing off. Right. But right now on a weekly chart, one thing that I see is still indecision. So someone might be getting extremely bullish and saying, man, this is going to be breaking into new all-time highs this week. This is an indecision candle. So I'm going to mark the weekly high of last week, the weekly low, the open and the close of the week. Okay. And if it connects with any points, I'll drag it over just a little bit. So right now, that is resistance. That is resistance. And then we've got our support range under here. And really, I don't like it even coming down that low. If we break below 655, then we're probably, cracking lows personally. All right. But this is kind of my pivot point here. Okay. My pivot point is if we fail back below this previous weekly open, then that's 660. Okay. If we fall back below 660, most likely we're going to start trending in this direction like this. Okay. If we break above this 665, we can start trending to the higher end of the range like this, right? So it can be tricky when people are just jumping in on Monday, assuming what's going to happen, because either way can be faked out. You can come all the way back up here and then come back down. You can come all the way back down here and then go back up, right? So it is in this channel, right? Back and forth until otherwise, okay? Which is why people have to be patient and lower their risk size and also understand what's a good trade, right? And also when to stay away. Okay. So what this is building liquidity in a consolidation. Okay. Anytime you have a big move, okay, it could be on a weekly chart. It could be on a daily chart. What happens the following week or the following day is typically consolidation. And that's where people start losing their heads and losing their accounts and messing things up and spinning and this and that. Well, which way is it going? Right. And that's when myself and others that know how to scalp back and forth very quickly, right, make our money very easily. I had some of the best trades last week and the following week because I trade very well in channels and scalping back and forth. Once I get a resistance, once I get a support, I'm like, boom, bam, boom, bam, I'm in, right? Kind of what you just saw on here, right? From here to here is all I need, right? But some people don't do that, and they like trades playing out a little bit longer. They like stepping away from their computer. They like going, just seeing if it works out. And that doesn't work in this type of scenario, right? You need to be on the charts unless you have, as we call, leaps or big swings, or you have time on your side, on your contracts for trading purposes, okay? So this is my sentiment coming from the weekly, as we don't still have a direction yet, but we do have who has control or pressure. The Bears still have kind of an edge, but the Bulls last week, right, still held up their levels, right? That's how to read this, okay? So what I want to do is I want to mark my weekly levels because Bulls will have control above. And right now we're at 665.28 after hours. I think maybe a little bit higher on Robinhood it might show. So right now the Bulls have control if we're above the previous weekly high, right? So in this area is kind of bullish control, okay? In this area is more kind of bearish control underneath that 660. And in the middle, you already know what I'm going to do. Okay. It's kind of iffy. We have to just watch price action in that area. All right. But we have to know if we're trading it. Okay. Where do you take your trades? So if you watch my risk to reward video, got a lot of good feedback. That's a mouthful. Got a lot of good feedback from that video because entries matter. So when I tell my community members when we're live trading, no, I'm waiting. Dang, I missed my entry. I don't have a lot of drawdown on my trades, right? So my entries are very pinpoint, or at least I try to be. So I'm not sitting in the negative and then letting the trade work out, right? So that's why if you enter a call option up here, man, we're bullish, and you don't let it break above that 670, okay? You could get trapped and knocked right back down, right? But if you enter a call option closer to where buyers are, maybe holding 665, okay, cool. Maybe you can enter a call option up into this point. So you get their $4 or $5 move up into that resistance, okay? So entries matter if you're trading on your own, all right? Let's go into our hourly time frame, our daily. Let's go into our daily and look at the daily SPY. And this is where it gets a little bit more interesting because I can draw some tighter resistance levels that might be in play. So do you see that 667? Okay. That 667 is very heavy. Okay. That essentially means heavy, a lot of pressure on that area from sellers. So just for those that don't know that terminology wise, this area right here is very heavy for sellers because it's happened once, dropped from 667 back to 655, right? We got above, and that's the area that we failed. Okay. And we've tried to get back above it, drop, and now we're trying again. Bulls have control and they're trying to break above that 667 with strength. So they're trying to get a candle like this above 667 that holds like that. Okay. If that starts to happen, then bulls will start to get a little bit more excited, and then they're trying to break new highs and go up like that. Okay. Now we're back to roughly all-time highs. Okay. So that is very much a possibility, is another slow grind up. Now, if we reclaim 671 or we get a strong push up into new highs, the breakout into new highs is going to be up into this 678 area. Okay. That is what we call our weekly expected move. So those purple lines that you saw on my chart earlier, that is the level that I'm looking for us to break into new all-time highs. If bulls get strength and we break out, is up into that 678. All right. So do not try to short, or I'll be backing off of any shorts or shorting pops or puts, anything like that. If I start to see strength up above that 672 and ultimately up above that 673 area, which is where I'll be a little bit more confident above 673 that we're going higher. And you can see that trend is right on that line. Okay. So that is a possibility, and that's how I would look. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the more bearish scenario that some people may have been hearing, because I want to always start off with the bullish case because that's where most people's minds go. But let's keep our head on a swivel and say, well, what if, there's a fake out or something? Okay. I will be watching price action around this zone where I have these red lines around 667, because this is also a potential trap, head and shoulders. Okay. And that's how it typically looks. All right. Left shoulder drops down to an equal low, new high, big fall back down to an equal low. And then it slowly trends back up, back into this area. So where sellers can say, bet I can get this trap right here in that area, have my stop loss above the highs, and start gathering some puts right here to drop it back down and try to put those pressure, because everyone's going to be loading calls like rookies, right? Retail investors that don't know these things, they're going to be loading up calls right here, right? So this area is going to be very high of interest for sellers to try to protect. And if they can't protect it, that's where we get the squeeze, right? That's where you get that big thing right there. So I'm very well aware of that possibility, but for anyone that's like, how you hear on the Twitter streets or everything else, when it finally goes in someone's direction, see, I told you, I told you it was bullish. you can't say that until it breaks above a level, right? Like when I hear that, I'm like, could you give me an explanation? Did you have a plan for either way? Right? Of course, when it goes green, see, I told you it was bullish. Okay, like that is great. I was prepared for that. I'm not saying it was directly towards me, but when I hear those things, I'm like, that's like a gambling mentality. Like you're just guessing that, man, I told you it was bullish. Did you see bearish? No. Okay. Okay. Right. So I'm prepared for both. Right. And I will take my trade accordingly. Right. Because what has been happening is that, yeah, I've been shorting these pops, but until I see that fail or get above with strength, I will stop shorting. Right. Because I can protect this area and see that sellers are very heavy up here. And that's where that risk to reward video came in. Okay. Does everyone get that? Can I get a 5 in the chat? Does that make sense? So I don't want you to be afraid or fearful or think one way or the other. I just want everyone to be prepared. So you're like, oh, see, Brian prepared us for that. Right. Everyone's like, man, what's happening? Oh, I was prepared for that. You didn't see that? Right. Or we're bullish. Yep. I knew it. We broke above 673. Did you see that? No, I didn't know what level. I just see green. Okay. Right. So it's crazy. All right. I will give you also the case where I'm really going to be interested. Like up here pushing new highs. Again, I'm not really interested in like loading up calls, pushing into new highs. Okay. Another new all-time high. I'm personally not interested in loading up calls. I'll probably still scalp calls, things like that. But as far as just going long, that's a lot of risk for another possibility of a big rejection. Okay. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I am saying that there's a little bit more risk going long with calls on when you have the SPY just pushing up new all-time highs again. So we'll see what happens. I'm open to either. What I would love to happen is a complete trap fake out. I would love to see this 640 level. I would love to see that 640 level. That 640 level is right on, or should be right on kind of the daily, maybe the daily 100, or maybe a pullback into this equal low of 655 again. That would be completely ideal. But right now, bulls are having a little bit of strength because they're holding up, as you can see, these moving averages held up this 50, probably breaking above the daily 20 again tomorrow. And that's bullish. Okay. Because I like a risk to reward profile looking a little bit more like this, where we get one more dump and then we push it up, right, into the end of the year. But right now we're still bullish. All right. So I would love Trump to absolutely fake everybody out, drop it down one more time, and then we run it up. But just not getting that continuation to the downside, which is fine. We'll trade what's available. All right. Because eventually it will happen. That's what I'm saying. Prepare for, because eventually we will get something that drops below all the moving average, and we will get that drop. It could happen into 2026. It could happen when the government shutdown ends and they finally release all the data. That's another thing that's in my head for any of my folks that are, very data heavy, very economic based. Like if Ben, you're on here, or anybody else, you're like, man, this data isn't. Yeah, we can have another rate cut, but this data, inflation data, it's very concerning still. Right. And guess what? All those reports still have not come out. The jobless reports, those still haven't come out. So what if jobs or reports come out and they're bad and we drop all the way back down here? Right. Once they release. Cool. So head on a swivel. And I'm only saying that because I've marked my levels where I would really like to buy up, where big money buys 638, 640, somehow, some way. Until then, I'm a little bit cautious about swinging call options. Like, yeah, just a little bit concerning on that. I'll scalp it, but swinging call options, as we saw, we tried it on NVIDIA, right? And we had to take it out very quickly because NVIDIA is still rejecting that 184 level. Okay. All righty. Everybody good? I got 5s in the chat. Everybody good on that? Can also buy bonds if you're iffy on the stock market. Yep. Exactly. Cool. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Alrighty, let's jump into a couple other things here. We got QQQ. Okay. SPY is a little bit stronger than Qs because SPY is inclusive of healthcare, right? And finance. And finance has been reporting very good earnings. And also healthcare, we know, is building up strength. So that is why SPY is a little bit more bullish in my case, right? Trending upwards a little bit more than maybe QQQ, because we do have some concerns around, what Trump is doing with trade war and chips and semiconductors. And there's still a little bit of iffiness around there. So there's still a little bit of hesitancy around the Qs and tech, right? Kind of, why you see Amazon still pushing lower, why you see maybe NVIDIA not getting that strength it really needs to, right? And that is the reason why. Google, very bullish, right? Apple, right? That is still a little bit more of a concern because it's right back up in the daily 20, but Apple's still looking good, right? On this double bottom here. So we'll look at tech, right? We'll look at tech and we'll see what's going on tomorrow. So the levels on Qs for a breakout is breaking out above 609. And even then, but if it breaks back above this, Thursday high, which will be 608, right? Breaking above 608, then we could get a squeeze up into this 610 level and 612 and maybe a new high, equal high back up here, right? So until proven otherwise, a lot of bullish strength here coming off of there. And what I would do is draw something similar to that, right? Trending up, trending up, trending up, testing that new high, and then we see what we do from there. All right. So Qs above 608 just mark these previous day high wicks, and we've got to see what they do into those areas. Okay, I'll watch price action in that zone to see how we do. Okay, very critical zone right here around 607, 608. Okay, this was a monster trap right in here. We gapped up right into that area and dropped damn near 608 to 10 points, right? So I know sellers are heavy in that area until we break. All right. Now, one trade or one idea I do like, y'all know I love my gap fills. Okay. My gap fills. If anyone has any questions about any of the indices and I went over Qs a little bit too quick, please let me know. But that is what I'm watching into tomorrow is simply the resistance levels, because that's where we're pushing up into, right? We've got support levels below, but we'll see what happens in the resistance first. Now, I love my gaps. All right. And for those that aren't familiar with my gap fill strategy or my gaps, there are gaps that are created in stocks, which I highlight in these light gray areas, okay, that stocks create. Now, if I go into SPY, there's still a little bit more of a gap to fill down into this 650 area, right? Do you see that little gap right there? So when I see unfilled gaps and it popped down very close into there, that tells me that, that little gap right there will eventually get filled. Right? Eventually it will get filled, and that could be a pop into higher and then get slammed back down like that. So that's also a helpful tool in the back of my toolbox. Now, one that is very interesting is we do have a gap, even though IWM is very sensitive to rate cuts. And, if there are another rate cut, IWM will go higher. But in the short term, there is a little gap right here. And I've been trading IWM very well inside of our community because it's a little bit less volatile than SPY. So instead of trading a $10 move on SPY, which is great, like that's awesome. But if your entry is wrong, it's a little bit more difficult to control. So I can get in the money contracts with time on IWM and get the same amount of value or more, right? Sometimes SPY weekly contracts at the end of the week, it gets a little bit pricey. I'm spending $400, $500 on a SPY contract just for safety. Right? Versus at IWM, I can spend my normal 150, 160 and get time and in the money. Okay. So one trade I am looking for, and I am interested if we do get weak, is an IWM put trade for a pop into this zone up in to 246. So if we push a little bit higher into the daily 20 up into 245, 246 zone, just know I'm looking for this. Okay. Looking for that gap to get filled. Well, by when, Brian? Can you give us the contract? Well, I'll throw you a little oop. When I'm looking at that, I want to make sure that I have time. So I'll probably be looking, if my target is down here to maybe 240, 241, right? And it's sitting at 245, I'll probably start being interested in the potentially 242 or 241, even the 240 puts for the end of the week. So the 24th. Okay. Now, sometimes when I see that big of a trade that potentially could play out and I don't want to stress myself out for the week, I'll even look on that next Monday for indices. So if I see 240 puts for Monday drop below $200, I like that even better, right? So just put that on your radar for, October 24th or October 27th, 240 or 241 puts. That would be my ideal target for, and if it drops below into this gap, then it could come down to 235, right? So that is a trade that I am looking for if the market does get a little bit more weak and we come out of this channel, pop it one more time into there, and then sit here and I see price action rolling over. Okay, cool. I may be looking for that. Okay. So we're looking for that trade tomorrow to see where, especially, man, do not give me a gap up in the morning. Y'all know me. Do not give me a Monday gap up when the market is going higher right now and I get a gap up in the morning. Yeah. Easy money on a Monday. If you know, you know. Okay. So let's go into, that's the IWM trade. Let's go into some of our main stocks here on our kind of FANG, now Fab 10, whatever you want to say, our top tech stocks. I'll go into the strong ones first, which are Google. Okay. Google is strong, but still it cannot go necessarily until the market really breaks out. So again, a stock can be very strong and you can trade, off of a level and scalp it, but are you going to get true continuation if the market is, into resistance? So there are going to be, potentially people looking for this breakout on Google, right? But it's right up into heavy resistance on another try of a breakout of a new high. You can see this entry point of Google right here is probably people entered close to this break of daily 20. They got from 246 and they're going to take it probably to 256. And that's a 10-point move and they'll probably trend their profits, right? If we get a breakout, cool, new high, that's fine. But again, entry is important. Even though Google's strong, you do not want to enter calls up into that zone. Okay. All right. So Google is a strong stock. However, if it's in resistance, the trade is already done until it breaks out into a new high above 257. All right. So if you're hearing Google strong, you like a setup like that, great, but do not get faked out up here into this heavy resistance zone on Google, even though it's strong. All right. Watch where SPY is. Watch where QQQ. If QQQ and SPY start breaking out and you start seeing strength, then yeah, you can take a strong stock and start breaking it out, break and retest up higher. All right. Trying to go to 260. All right. Apple. This is an interesting trade as well. All right. Apple's always an interesting one because Apple can make a massive move and also can take forever to make its move. All right. So I have a, love-hate relationship with trading Apple, right? But it has a great setup, in my opinion, if this plays out, okay? If the market does what we think it's may potentially going to do, which is pop a little bit higher and then start fading and rejecting. If I start seeing Apple, and because Apple's on a daily 20, right? You see right there, big breakdown, pop up into that lower area where it broke down, that's a retest. And if I see Apple cannot get above this 253 area, then this is a potentially big bearish flag, but a little bit concerning because of how strong that Friday candle was. Okay. Because Apple could just say, screw that, squeeze. All right. So it is of interest, but I'm not taking it unless I see something and I see some aggressive kind of sellers come in. Or the SPY and QQQ are doing what I want it to do. But that is of interest. And here's how I would look for anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about is a bear flag typically makes an equal move like that, right? Pop down, trend back up, bear flag, There's the flagpole. There's the flag, and then equal move to the downside. Okay. Because we got to think about, this is a thin structure move. That essentially means when you have a straight up move, I've talked about it, I've repeated myself inside of our community a lot, you can have a straight down move, right? Because there's really no support in this area other than this gap up that we had, and that's where it's holding up right now, 245, right? But that is a thin structure, straight up move due to iPhone 17 sales, okay? So that is a trade that I am looking for potentially if the market does what it wants to do, is up in a 253. And the confirmation would be a failure back underneath 250. Okay. Kind of a failure. You see it already kind of doing it. All right. If it comes back underneath there and I see a candle underneath here like this, and you start seeing Apple like that. All right. Okay, cool. That's confirmation. Wait for one little pop. Okay. That's a weak pop. And then there's the flush like that. Kind of happened up here. Right. Kind of happened up here. All right, that was more of a rising wedge, but it was in this little move, kind of got tight, couldn't go any higher, overextended, pop, retest, down. Y'all see that? Straight down, little slow retest, straight down. Okay, this is just on a bigger time frame. All right, so that, and there's a gap down there too. And there's a gap. So I need a little bit more confirmation to get the right contracts. I will share it within the community, but that is a potential trade, another bear flag to come lower into this area, but we need help from the market. All right. Amazon. A lot of folks I got a question from my boy Jay in the community on Amazon. Like, Brian, like, are we going long Amazon yet? Like, is Amazon going to have a great earnings? And it's at 250. Again, entry. Do I think Amazon's going back up to 250? Yes. By when? No one can tell you that until we get confirmation on where the bottom is. Right? Because most people are trying to, you might be dollar cost averaging. That's fine. Keep buying Amazon shares, That's fine. I'm talking about long call options for trading. So long-term investing is easy. Anytime you have these stocks falling, dollar cost average, buy more. That's easy. Right? But where's the bottom? Right? And my signals right now are not giving me a bottom signal just yet, because what did we do? We closed below the daily 200. Right? You see that yellow orange line? Look what happened every time we closed below daily 20, daily 50, daily 100, went down. Now we're below this daily 200. And I don't know if we reclaim it, cool, we can go higher. I need to see some rotation back up. Right now there's too much downward pressure and we could just fall out. Right? And then you've got 200 in sight or 208 in sight, and it's right now at 213. Do you see my kind of quote unquote, what I was talking about, Qs, a little bit of concern is that Amazon's not going higher as Qs are going higher. That's relative weakness, right? So you're like, man, the market's strong, and then Amazon's still trending lower. You're like, what is going on here? That is telling you a sign that that stock is just having a little bit of concern, right? For whatever reason. So we need to see Amazon with some strength for me to get confident going long for call options. Now, maybe closer to earnings, we can see where it settles in. That's why I'm telling you, how beautiful would it be, as painful as people don't want to see it, if we can get one more flush before these tech earnings. If I can see Amazon just go like this for whatever reason, right, before their earnings, I love it. Right here, it's still a little bit iffy. Does that make sense? Dollar cost average. If you have a different viewpoint, that's cool. Do you? But would I enter call options right here without a confirmation? Not necessarily. There's a little bit of support right in this area. You can see what happened last time I got down here, went all the way back up. Yeah, but I need to see a reclaim. Right? Look at this candle that got back above this 221. See? You see that? That's a confirmation candle. Then I take the retest. Then I can go higher. Right? So sometimes bottom ticking it, trying to get the perfect entry on something that has a very wide average true range like Amazon that could fall another $2, $5, can pop up another 10. I don't want to be on the wrong side of the trade of that too early. Okay. So I'm just being patient on Amazon, watching it daily, trying to see some confirmation before I get interested in what it's going to do. Cool. Microsoft, I've been leaving Microsoft alone. I got nothing to say unless we see some big move on it, maybe back underneath 500 or something like that. I really personally want Microsoft gap fills. Like, so if it can get some weakness or something, I like that better, but it's still holding up. It's still strong. All right. Meta. I personally put Meta on the back burner for trading it. So I have not been looking at it ever since it popped from this earnings report. It's not really given a solid entry. As you can see, just been trending higher. Cool for long-term. Trading wise, not really interested in it. But Meta, put on your watch. Okay. Meta typically makes, as y'all know, for those that know, $100 move on earnings potentially. Okay. Up or down. So Meta might be one of those that I'm like, let me build up some cash flow and maybe let me put a lotto in for Meta. I mean, if this hits, it hits. Like, you know, it's worth it to do something like that on like a Meta, right? Microsoft also moves very heavily on earnings. Yes, Tesla moves on earnings. You can do a lotto on Tesla, but I leave it alone, right? But Meta and Google's been making big moves too, but Meta, Microsoft, those might be worth it. Okay. They move tremendously. Every time I'm like, man, let me put in a Meta lotto, I second guess myself. And next thing you know, Meta goes from last earnings, it went from 700 to 795. Right. But also Meta can do this and say, hey, we're already at highs, and it could drop down from 720 to 620. Right. So either way, it can move that way. Okay. Cool. So Meta, more interested around its earnings, not really interested right now. We'll see. Tesla. Okay. Tesla is gaining some bullish strength, but as you know, Tesla, one way or the other, is going to try to trap some folks. Okay. So in the short term, what I would say is that Tesla has regained its daily 20, and it could try to start building some strength as people are like, man, Tesla going into earnings, I may want to pick this up just in case it does that. Right. Now, what I would love is if Tesla, does that, great for long-term, great for TSLA shares, cool. But this is what I'm talking about for post-Tesla earnings. If it does something like that, I believe there's going to be some heavy profit taking because everybody's been waiting for a 500 level break or a 500 level touch, right? And it could do same thing as it did right here, right? Big push up and roll down, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking for, is trading it post earnings. If it pops up higher, there'll be a massive gap. I can see if there's a little bit of weakness, scalp it down. We'll see, right? It's Tesla. So that's what's kind of forming right now, is more of a bullish structure, right? But also Tesla, if it comes in poor, as we know, is not been having good earnings. It could give this little double top and then fill that gap right there, right? Because I know that I personally want Tesla back down where big money wants it, which is a retest of 380, retest of 370. And if it gives that, that's even better because everyone might be a little bit concerned, but also it's right at those moving averages, right at that retest level, calls, right? For that gap fill back up. Then people are like, cool, give me on a dip again. I can ride it higher if that's what the idea is for people. Okay. So Tesla, crapshoot. I'm just looking at the chart to see how it reacts. I'll wait till after it posts earnings. Coinbase. Now, Coinbase is interesting because I just talked about, maybe I'll save Coinbase for crypto. Let me move into NVIDIA. Okay. NVIDIA right here. This is where it's kind of faking some folks out, which is where I've been scalping it. But can NVIDIA get back and mount above 185? Okay. I know a lot of folks are looking at this gap fill on NVIDIA and they want that big squeeze back up to here on NVIDIA. Okay. It is very much possible. I'm not sure. Y'all can tell me. I'm not checking Robinhood right now. Is it up after hours? Is it above 184? After hours, things like that. So if we see NVIDIA above 185 is where I'd be a little bit more confident. I can take a retest of that. So just say NVIDIA breaks above 185, maybe gets into the 186s, pull back into 184 test, and then you can take it to 189, 190. It would look just like that. Okay. So first drive up into a like midpoint, see if we can catch a little pullback on it or go, or first breakout, maybe we can get some starters, take the pullback and go. Okay. So that is NVIDIA of how it would look. Right now, this is more bearish consolidation, right? We're in this channel right here underneath previous all-time highs. Do you see that? All right. So it's a little tricky in here is that we got above and then we fell back below and now we're holding, right? If NVIDIA can't do it, there's a very much possibility of it doing that, right? So it is a little bit tricky and it's trapping and tricking folks if they're not familiar of when to take it out, what it's going to do. It's not been really continuing anywhere. Okay. Now, another concern is this cross right here is there's a lot of kind of pressure on the video right now until it can get back above those areas, you see? All right. So this is downward pressure right now. Now let's look at the daily 20. Look exactly where it is. It's sitting right in between both daily moving averages. That is a key sign. So what I like to do before market open is mark my daily 20s, right? Which will be right around this 184 and it's rejecting it. Okay. I'll even label it. Some people have seen inside of daily 20. So when I get into my shorter time frames, oops, no, I do not want to mark that. Let me go here, there, daily 20, sitting right on top of there. And then I'll mark daily 50, sitting right there. Okay. So when I go into my lower time frames, my day trading time frames, right, I can see them, right? And that's what I was talking about to my community when I was like, yeah, it's pushing right up into the daily 20, right? Be careful. And then we got daily 50 sitting right here. So guess what? If it starts rejecting this area, where does it come back to? Right back there. If it starts filling that, we're going down, right? And that's when people get frustrated. They're like, oh my God, what is going on with NVIDIA? It can't get above the daily 20. Okay. Now, if it pops above it, cool. There it is. You're a genius. All right. So do not get trapped until you understand where the confirmation is. And cool, we're bullish on NVIDIA. I can confidently take it up. Until then, I've been shorting it. And my community knows we've been shorting it. I think, David, you took it up and down. All right. We tried to take it up, didn't continue, got a win, but still can't get above that level just yet. All right, so be careful on NVIDIA. Pop up above 185 into the 186s. We got gap fill, and then you can take it up. Okay, be careful. AMD, it's in this channel. Okay, this channel kind of looks like Apple, right? When Apple was trending upwards like this, big pop. Look at that. All right, trending up in this channel. If the market gets any weakness, and I know AMD is strong, I get it, but this little trending channel sometimes it could just pop out of that channel and fill some of these gaps or retest some of these lows. So just be very careful into this channel here on AMD, and they drop some type of news or something, right? It's trying to probably get to 250. That's where, bulls are trying to get AMD is up into this 250 area and maybe try to tap it, all right? Trying to get it up into here, all right? But then again, that's right into a psych level. We don't know. So I don't like these little rising wedges after a big move. I typically stay away from them, but AMD is making nice bull flags. It's bullish until proven otherwise. Where I'd get concerned is this area right here. See that big rejection point down at 226. Okay, see that broke above it. If we get below 226 like that, that's where I'd get concerned. Okay, for lower. All right, other than that, still bullish. Okay, above 230, psych level, trying to go back to 240, trying to get to 250. All right, so I don't really like the trade on it until it gives me something out of this area, but I'm not chasing up higher personally. That's just me. All right, Broadcom, it's got some gaps below. It's getting some heavy resistance up here, trapping underneath 360. Yeah, I just probably pay attention to the daily moving averages. It's sitting above the daily 20 yet again. Don't short above the daily 20 necessarily. If it gets weak, cool, top of the range, but it fails underneath 340. You got daily 50 down here. Looks like it's moving about $10 to $15 on its moves. So Broadcom, not really interested personally, but if it gets weak, then I know I have gap. TSM had its earnings, great earnings. And here's a perfect example of how the tech earnings season could go. Okay. Do you see that TSM had great earnings, but it was already at highs going into earnings. I think this is a perfect example. Great earnings, man. TSM calls, great earnings. I don't like that popping up into highs when the market is weak, okay, or concerning. So TSM, at least for right now, needs to cool off, maybe gap fill. Daily 20 is sitting right at 286, another $10 down. It popped up to here, faked everyone out, profit taking down. Okay. So that is a perfect example of how a great earnings report can already be priced in, or there's a little bit of concern in the market and everyone's wondering why TSM had such good earnings and it went down. There's your answer. Look on the charts. All right. So TSM, nice gap fill there. And because TSM is producing the chips with NVIDIA, AMD, so on and so forth, right? If this starts pulling down, SMH starts pulling down, which is the semiconductor ETF, that also is a little bit concerning for semiconductors, right? That the SMH is back up into resistance. And if the SMH starts getting weak, right, then NVIDIA, AMD, all of our favorite semiconductors will start probably pulling down. Okay. So another concern right there is watching this either breakout of SMH or a weakness on SMH. Okay. All right. Let's go into some people that have anything. Anybody in the chat? Anybody in the chat? NVIDIA 183. Okay. Yeah, still underneath there, Trent. Still underneath there. We'll have to see what happens in the morning, but still a little bit concerning on that iffiness side. So I'd still be a little bit hesitant on calls, at least for right now. Cool. Appreciate you, Trent. Let's go into some big plays. The question I'm getting, I'll take a pause for just a second going down this watch list. The question I'm getting from a lot of you and from people in general is, when's the next big play, right? Like when is like the next $30 run up, $40 run up like AMD did and so on and so forth, right? Personally, I would like one more shakeout. Going the next big play from here, it's a little bit risky in my opinion if you're trying to take it up, okay? Pushing any higher is you see how AMD's already moved. You see how NVIDIA has gone almost to 200. Like there's very little more upside, at least for the short term, in my opinion, before one more big flush. I would personally like one more big flush. That would be where I'm interested in like, okay, cool. Let's load up on calls. Let's get ready. Let's go. Now there's still some opportunity here in some of these that have already fallen. But as far as some of the major tech, until this kind of trade war, until the data reports, please be careful in going and loading up on long call options on some of these tech names until this trade war thing kind of settles in. All right. I'm just telling you right now, if it happens and it works out for you, great. I'm not really interested in loading up calls at the highs when we have a trade war situation going on. I'm not fearful of it. I'm just like, man, this thing could go south. He could come out and say something. He gets frustrated. And then we drop on every tech company, which will be a great pullback. Right. So that's the question I've been getting is, earnings season, when's the big money coming, so on and so forth. Is this going to go higher? I just see gaps below. I see some gaps. It doesn't mean all of them have to fill. I just see gaps below. And those gaps below, just like, Coinbase pulling back in some of these gaps, I do not chase. I'm not chasing. Right. So that's just my thesis. That's my thesis. All right. Let's go into crypto. And we're right at the top of the hour. So let's check on the futures market. Look at that gold trade. Y'all see right where it went to? Right in my green zone. And that means gold might have lower. So I might find an entry on a gold short. We'll see, but right into my target. Wow. That probably means that the futures market is up. If we go on to S&P, we go on to ES, it is probably on the upside, most likely. And we can see the futures market, I think this is good for me to show, is that it is also kind of rolling over here on the S&P right now, right? So that's kind of giving us a telltale sign of what's happening in the after hours is that there's still a little bit of downward pressure, which is the SPY, right? Same chart, you see there, downward pressure. What I just talked about those areas is that we still can't get above them and we could come lower off of that area, right? So that's not very confident in taking NVIDIA long if that is happening in the after hours and we get weakness, right? You're probably seeing SPY down in your Robinhood, so on and so forth. Okay, cool. All right. I'll take any questions from anybody. Anybody want me to chart something out? Futures are red. Exactly. Chart something out. Anybody got any questions, thoughts, perspectives? Chart anything out. I want to take your specific stocks that you have. I also have something for everybody, which is going to be the growth stocks for 2025. Everyone has questions on Oklo. What's that going to do? IREN. What's that going to do? MP. What's that going to do? QBTS. Open Door. Navitas, Nebius, Cypher, everything in this list has gone up almost 2, 3, 4, 500% for 2025. Rigetti Computing, right? What's going on with those? What should we do with those? I've got them here. So if you have any questions about those, I think they need a big pullback. I think anytime you have a straight up move, you have a straight down move. Okay. Anybody in the chat? Anybody in the chat? Give me a ticker. Give me a ticker to chart. If not, we'll keep moving and we'll start wrapping up here in the closing hours. Excuse me, closing minutes, I should say. Going once, going twice. It could be a different question. It could be like, Brian, what are you looking at for tomorrow? Anything off open? Or it could be, what do you think for 2026 really quick? That's going to be another question. Is what's going to pop in 2026, or just we got to take it day by day right now. Man, everybody's quiet today. Everybody is quiet today. Cool. All right, let's go into some of our swings then. Some of our bigger positions that we may have going into. A lot of folks are wondering about crypto, so let's go into there. Let's look at Bitcoin. Okay. Look at Bitcoin on a weekly chart. Okay. Now, how would I look at this Bitcoin chart from a weekly perspective? This is more of an engulfing candle, so I would be very concerned more of this equal engulfing candle here from last week on NVIDIA. Okay. And the reason being is because NVIDIA could have a potential another down week. Now this is a great dip opportunity to keep hitting up the dip on crypto and do your thing. But from a charting perspective, that last week, right, we could have a little bit of a pop, right? But as long as Bitcoin is holding above that 109, regains 110, that's great. But I think a lot of folks would love for Bitcoin to fall below 100. Like one more drop below 100, and that would be right on this trend line. Right? You see that? Drop below 100, get into, maybe 95 or something like that. That would be great. So Bitcoin, still some selling pressure, still some liquidation because there's still that uncertainty of what Trump's going to do, what's going on with this trade war. We haven't even released data reports. We're in a government shutdown, right? We don't know what's going to happen. So there's liquidation going on, which is a great opportunity for anyone that wants a bigger dip. Okay. So get your game plan together now. If you're heavy in a lot of these things from those quantum computing stocks, so on and so forth, Bitcoin and crypto in general, it's volatile, right? So you've got to prepare for, am I comfortable with it dropping another 3-5% and picking up more? If you are, then you're not concerned either way. But if you're like, man, I kind of bought a little bit high, I need to watch it, I don't have any more liquid cash to buy more, then there's your game plan. This is not financial advice. I'm just saying that most just wait and see, and they don't have a game plan of what's going to happen one way or the other. Okay. So Bitcoin, I like it back at the 90 to 95 level as a first big buy up. Any dip below 100, that'd be great. Right? As long as it holds above 100, cool. But right now, that last week's engulfing candle And you can see here on a daily, it kind of broke a little bit back below that 109. Okay. What happened last time we got below 109? We rotated back to 80 and, back down to these lower levels, 98, 90, 83. So we'll see if this holds up trend. Great. It's another bull flag going higher. All right. Just prepare if it drops lower. Ethereum, I've got my buy zones pretty dialed on Ethereum. I like 27, 2,800, and I like anywhere around $3,000. Right, anywhere around $3,000. So buy zones have hit pretty on point. As you can see, I had to move them because it hit right at 2,500, and then this big dip down here was right at my buy zone previous high right there. Okay, so buy zones are already set. On Ethereum, if it does drop back into some of these moving averages, which would be right around, you can see as long as holding above the moving average is great, and that would meet it right around that 32 to 3,500 right now. Okay. Solana, same thing, still in this trend line until it breaks. But Solana, just every trend line, told you all about the 170 pullback. That was great. But look at this last week's candle on Solana. See that top wick there? All right. Plus this engulfing candle from the previous week. That just tells me a little bit more liquidation. So if that plays out to fruition, right, I would love that. I'll just turn it purple. Right. One more drop back down to equal lows at 150 to 155 on Solana. If we can get some type of another flash crash, but that would be another buy zone for Solana back in this 150 area. Cool. Any of the quote unquote meme coins or whatever you want to call them, altcoins, I should say. Cardano sitting right around 56. I know a lot of folks are wondering about XRP. I think Dogecoin is great as well for the next crypto run. If I go to XRP, right, it's respecting levels, right? But there is a little bit more of downward pressure still on it, right? But still keep picking up some. If those of you that haven't gotten to XRP, if you can grab it below $2, that'd be even better. Remember, straight up move, straight down move. So it is kind of in this straight up move. And what if we do get some type of straight down move and we get $1 again? That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Now it might freak some people out, but that'll be awesome. But right now, still holding above $2. As long as it holds above $2, nice support zone for right now on XRP. Right, the chart's telling the story. Obviously, it's yielded by other factors, but I focus on the charts and also listen to the news, and it's kind of coinciding. All right, so alrighty, let's go to Coinbase here. And Coinbase is an interesting chart because it's stuck right in the middle of what Bitcoin is potentially going to do, is right there. Okay, so Coinbase, if we look at it, it has failed back below these highs. However, it's still on the uptrend, so kind of a little bit iffy, right? Because what happened last time Coinbase popped up higher, it came back and retested equal lows, okay? But I don't personally think that's going to necessarily happen until it does happen, or if it doesn't. But Coinbase is going to follow along with Bitcoin and crypto and what happens. All right. So got to be prepared for, again, what this is telling us, which is it's in support, but there's also downward pressure with this weekly lower high. So if that weekly lower high takes out 300, what happens there? If I see the weekly high start holding, kind of like what it's doing now, right? And starts holding and picking up steam and we get out of there like that, then cool, right? We're back up. But please be on watch for this 300 on Coinbase and also Bitcoin of what it's doing. And as you can see right there, there are some gaps on Coinbase. All right. Been pretty on par with these gaps getting filled on Coinbase when they've happened. Look at this gap. It was on Coinbase when it was running like crazy. See that gap up right there? Where'd it go? New highs on Coinbase, 174. Now, if you take advantage of this, that's great, but don't chase into new highs because guess what? The gap eventually got filled right back to 142. There's a great pickup. Now we got some more gap ups, gap ups, gap ups, gap ups, and they never got touched. That makes sense? So chart tells a story. That's where the money's made. And I watch specific levels to gain understanding of where the sentiment is. MSTR, I never liked it from the beginning personally. MicroStrategy, I think there's still some, as we say, cahoots going on with MicroStrategy. People made a lot of money on MicroStrategy here, but folks have been loading up on MicroStrategy at the top. Do not load up at the top. Wait till MicroStrategy gets back to 150 or 100 or wherever it decides to go. All right. Back down like that. Equal lows. Shoot, MicroStrategy back at 130. All right. So do not chase. It's starting to break a little bit of structure here. And we see where the buyers are sitting right there at that. And let's see where the daily 20 is. See where those daily moving averages are. Now it does have earnings coming up. Heavy pressure on all the moving averages below. All right. Below all the moving averages. So people are trying to catch a falling knife right now. And that's fine. Dollar, if they believe in MicroStrategy, that's cool. But there's no bottom right now. No confirmed bottom. All right. Let's see. Anybody? Can't believe Solana's still under $200. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yep. Yep. The chart's just telling me that there's still a little bit of worry from folks. I think we can pop extremely high once the worry gets off the streets. Once Trump and all them sell everything and whatnot, and the data report's good, and Powell cuts rates back to new all-time highs. But until then, gold's going to be a safety net. The market's going to kind of consolidate around and sit, right, until they decide what's going on. All right, so, yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Now, gold's looking a little bit better for this long idea. This potential long buy idea. It's looking a little bit better here. Looking a little bit better. See right there, equal lows. Hammer candle coming off of that hourly. Yeah. Cool. This has been interesting. Ethereum got all the momentum. Yeah. Yep. I don't want to keep y'all any longer, so I'll have this as a last call for this week. I'd love to have you inside the community if you're not inside, or maybe you've lost access. For those of you that have taken a little break, this is a very pivotal time. So you can come on here and get the information you need, but it is tough. I'm not going to lie. It is tough because I've been doing this a long time, that if someone is new to this, it can be tough to understand because there's so much going on. There's news, there's charts, there's this, there's that. It looks like it's going up, it's coming back down. It looks like it's going down, come back up. So please sit, wait, understand where the big break is. I'll let you know on the YouTube streets, and we'll go from there. I'm also seeing a lot of upside on the after hours here right now. That means if we push up after hours, we can have a little gap to the upside. So after hours push, we'll see. All right. Is that it, everybody? Is that it? If y'all want to hang around for a little bit, do y'all want to see me maybe take another trade on gold? I'll see if I can find another trade really quick. If you'd like to hang around, that's cool. But I may jump in the community, maybe trade gold in there. But yeah, that's all I got. That is all I got. Starting to get a reclaim on gold here. Entry criteria back above this hourly close here. So I am complete. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me. If you want to see this gold trade, see if I can get this buy opportunity higher. I like that. All right, should have took it at the bottom there, but bullish strength stepping back up. Let me go on my normal 15-minute there. I like the hourly. This is what we call a reclaim. Okay, so now that that is back above that area, I can turn it back green. And now this is potentially turning back into a support. So when I say reclaim, we need to get a reclaim back above this level. This is what that means. It falls below a level, cool, and then it gets back above. Okay, cool. I can get maybe a little bit back bullish potentially because it fell back lower than expected. So also watching the 15-minute here on the close. Got about 6 more minutes, and I'm also liking this pullback here potentially on the 2-minute entry criteria there. So I'll confirm on higher time frames, and then I want to enter because the slower time frames, like a 2-minute or a 5-minute, gives me a little bit more precise entry. So I do this the same way on options, right? Is I will have different charts up. I will look at different time frames, and that's where my community members inside of Leverage understand I am where I get my like pinpoint entries. Is I'm watching a certain area, and I'll get my entry. All right, we'll get long here on gold on that flip of that area. See if we can get a nice little push here. My target would be, let's see. I really want 4,300. Right, I don't necessarily like how that 15-minute candle is still getting a little bit stuck, but I like this kind of bullish structure on the 2-minute, and see if I can get one more big push up higher. I would have ideally liked to enter on this kind of break here. Again, a little bit more of a late entry, so I've got to be a little bit lighter in size, as we like to say, because it could retest lower. My ideal entry would have been this break of this structure. So you see that downward pressure, see that big bullish candle that came off that structure right there. My entry typically is right here, right? I see that big criteria there, pull back, long. So never chase, wait for that confirmation candle, pull back. So I can tell right now that there is more bullish strength simply from this 2-minute break of structure back above, but we've got to get, as we call, continuation, right? So this could have been a nice pop right here, but can we get that continuation back to these equal highs up here, right? So that's technically where the target should be. And it's just getting stuck around this area. Just a lot of stickiness around this area. I'll also add to this trade if I start seeing it work in my favor a little bit better. So if I like the candle close, you can kind of see you don't need a lot of contracts for how volatile this is. Right? You can see if my target hits, there's damn near $200 something right there. So I'm liking how this looking a little bit better here. Right? So I might start adding just a little bit to it. Kind of want to wait to add on until this 15-minute candle closes. This could get a pullback on that 15-minute candle. Just want to see a solid close so our entry's good. If I can't get another add, I'll just let this initial runner go. So got 3 more minutes left on this 15-minute candle. I like that. Let's see if I can get a little pullback. So this would be technically a break and a retest, reclaim. So all I'm looking at is that previous level right there that we broke back above. You can see right over here, right? That's where the stop losses would have been for sellers if that can close a little bit stronger than that. Close a little bit stronger than that. And that's why I didn't add. This would be roughly a 15-point move, which is very easy for gold to do. That's nothing. That is a scalp for sure. I mean, from here to here, there's 30 to 60. That's a 30-point move right there. So if gold makes a 30-point move from here, I mean, 30-point move on one micro on gold is $300. So, yeah. Don't need a lot of size, but I would like to add size so I don't have to hold for the full move. Once it gives me a little bit better confirmation on this 15-minute close. Mm-hmm. And also depending on what type of trade I've taken before. So that other trade, y'all saw it worked out, right? I was short gold right here, right? So there's a 30-point move. So this move would have been $300 right there, right? But because I took a little small paper cut, I think I lost $80 on that trade. I typically take it lighter for the next trade, right? So I think I was in 2 contracts of that one. And you can kind of see that when I talk about on the channel here about lowering your risk size, understanding what type of trade it is. If I've already taken a little bit of a paper cut, the next trade, I just want to be cash flow. And yeah, just lower the risk size. Don't try to get it back tremendously. Just, take it slow and do a little bit more of a, like I said, cash flow trade. So it should feel good. Should feel easy. And yeah, just not getting a solid close here on that 15-minute just yet. I want this candle to close with a solid candle, not a very heavy top wick there. Again, I like the way that it's above or reclaimed back above VWAP and the non-EMA. I can kind of see those moving averages right there. Below them, a little bit more weak. Back above, a little bit stronger. All right, decent close there. Decent close. Let's see how this next 15-minute needs to hold up here. And still selling pressure. Not asking for much gold. Jeez. Just retesting the highs. There's no continuation. Wow. Now, some people, if you're watching this later or you trade futures, you're like, this dude don't know where's his stop loss, right? When I'm on the charts personally, and I have this light of size, I will do manual stop losses, right? So I entered it, where is that? 42.59, right? A 10-point stop loss would be 42.49, right? So right now, another stop needs to go. That's crazy. What a rejection. Whoops. I just added into it. Click the wrong button. That happens. Let's see. Let's see if this dip can get bought just a little bit. But technically, that was my stop loss, the 10-point stop at 42.49. That was an aggressive failure. More selling from gold just coming in at, yeah. Wow. So still green in the account, but that is not what you want to see. Not what you want to see. So still selling on gold. That tells me a story. So I will look for probably a later night gold trade that this is probably forming into more of a bear flag. And we'll go from there. But yeah, this is forming more into a bearish flag. and no continuation at all. So still selling pressure on gold. And this could be a big gold short. I mean, I might flip short here because of how aggressive that was. That 15-minute candle is coming down pretty aggressive there. Yeah. 15-minute candle coming down pretty aggressive. Could be more of a head and shoulders. I might add more into this aggressively. I just like that big failure off VWAP, just massive. But yeah, let me manage this trade accordingly so I can focus instead of teaching on here because this is real money. So, appreciate y'all. I will post in the community how this trade plays out, but I do like the short side looking a little bit better probably on gold as I have a clear 15-minute and a clear, if I go into my hourly, a clear hourly high as well, kind of forming a solid resistance area right around 42.70. 42.70. All right. Love y'all. Appreciate you. A little bit longer today. But yeah, it's choppy. Gold wants new all-time highs again. Yeah, it's just choppy. That's what I was looking for, is gold for a little press up higher before it goes lower. But right now it has got some serious selling pressure still on it. Serious selling pressure. All right. I'll see y'all in the community. Till next time. Talk to y'all later. Y'all trade safe this week, and we'll go from there. All right. Bye-bye.